Wait, let me put. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to let folks get in. Numbers are still climbing just a little bit. Wow, so many folks joining us today. Welcome to the Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation Conference, Equity from the Start. My name is Angela Keys, and I will serve as your session facilitator. I'm joined by Mercedes, who will serve as our technology host. The session is being recorded. Transcription is available through the Zoom platform, and should you have any questions, please feel free to relay your questions in the chat. We want to let you know before we begin that the views, policies, and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect those of SAMHSA or Health and Human Services. That said, I'd like to pass it over to Amber Smith-Williams and Dominique Calloway, who will be conducting our workshop today.
Hello. So we are here for centering families and children who are racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse. And we are so excited to present this to you all. So we're looking towards a more equitable early childhood experience. All right. So we want to first acknowledge the native land and enslaved people that have created the land. We would like to begin acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded, occupied, and seized land of the native people of Turtle Island. As presenters, we are currently in Colorado, the ancestral land that was stolen from the Apache, Comanche, Shoshone, and Ute people. We acknowledge the blood that was shed and the people lost. We would also like to acknowledge that we live in a land that has become prosperous due to stolen, unpaid, abused, and disenfranchised ancestral people of West, Central, Southern, and Eastern Africa, including but not limited to the people of the Ashanti, Igbo, Mandinka, Yoruba, Chamba, Fulani, Wolof, Abron, Fon, Bantu, Bakongo, and Umbundi, resulting in the depopulation of African countries, theft of land, culture, resources, and economic disenfranchisement in North, South, and Central America and Africa. Without the sacrifices of these ancestral people, we would not have the country in which we live, so we acknowledge the loss and toll the genocides took on the native peoples of the Americas and Africa. So I am Amber Smith-Williams. Here's all my alphabet soup: M.A.M.E.D, L.P.C, R.D.T. I'm an early childhood mental health consultant at IRE, the Institute for Racial Equity and Excellence in Colorado.
And my name is Dominique, and I'm a licensed social worker. I'm also an early childhood mental health consultant at IRE, the Institute of Racial Equity and Excellence.
All right.
All right, so these are our objectives today that we hope all of you as participants are able to achieve. Our first objective is to identify 3 categories of families that have historically been labeled as apathetic or hard to reach. We're going to use the work of Helen Barrett for these 3 types of families and explore opportunities for connection, and we'll discuss and exemplify that. Our object number 2 is hopefully participants will be able to identify their own bias, reflect how it impacts your work, and then working with diverse communities. We'll learn some strategies to begin to overcome those biases, as well as how to create a more inclusive and welcoming classroom using the work of Pamela Hayes. And then our third objective here is for participants to learn ways to engage families from diverse backgrounds and including diverse educational experiences. Drawing on the work of Kimberly Crenshaw, participants will learn ways to incorporate and celebrate intersectionality of all students. Also, we really like to have interactive presentations. So throughout this presentation, we'll ask you guys to raise your hand, put something in the chat, or simply come off mute. We really would love participation from everyone, and this is a safe space. So any questions, comments, we want to hear where you guys are coming from and what you're experiencing throughout this presentation. So know that it is a safe space to ask any questions that you do have.
Yes, and there are no dumb questions. We really appreciate all engagement. All right. So we're going to listen to a video, and to two videos. We want you guys to just kind of listen and then, just kind of think about your reactions.
We called mom because sometimes that helps de-escalate her.
What did she just say?
I can never tell.
What is she saying now? What is she saying now?
She's saying that's not my fault.
Okay, so let's follow up on that. What is the that's not my fault? What did she just say? I know she said that's not my fault. What is the that's not my fault? Is anybody engaging her or talking to her and asking her what's not her fault?
I'm talking to you.
No, I don't care. I don't care about that. You want to talk to me? I'm not there. Let's talk to her. Who's going to engage her? All behavior is communication. Listen to me. You're not the only person. You're not the only person who's educated in this. Don't have me match credentials, and you don't know who I really am. So listen to me. All behavior is communication. She's communicating. Who's listening to her? I don't need you to talk to me. I need somebody to communicate with her. Because when I get up there, she's not in trouble with me. Because I see a lot of ignoring my daughter. My daughter is an active girl, a 5-year-old. No one is communicating with her. You want me to suppress the behavior, but we're not getting to the root of the issue. She said that's not my fault. I don't hear anyone else talking to her. And you can't do it all, Miss Drake. Even though they may want to put it all on you, you can't do it all. So who do you have to support you? Who should be talking to my daughter? So let's engage that conversation. Don't talk to me. I'll listen. I'll stay on the phone with you. Ask her what's not her fault.
Okay. All right.
Come on. Let's work together. Let's go. Don't talk to me. Talk to her. I'll listen.
Okay. Ava. Hi.
Okay. And now we're going to listen to another recording. And again, just reflecting on kind of your thoughts on this.
We called mom because sometimes that helps de-escalate her. That's not my fault.
Wait, what did she just say?
I can never.
What is she saying now? What is she saying now?
She's saying that it's not my fault.
Okay, so let's follow up on that. What is the that's not my fault? What did she just say? I know she said that's not my fault. What is the that's not my fault? Is anybody engaging her or talking to her and asking her what's not her fault?
Right now I'm talking to you.
No. I don't care. I don't care about that. Look, you want to talk to me? I'm not there. Let's talk to her. Who's engaging her? Look, all behavior is communication. Listen to me. You're not the only person who's educated in this. You don't know my credentials, my prior experience in this. So listen to me. All behavior is communication. She's communicating. And who's listening to her? I don't need you to talk to me. I need somebody to communicate with her. Because when I get up there, she's not in trouble with me. Because I see a lot of ignoring my daughter. My daughter is an active girl, a 5-year-old. No one is communicating with her. You want me to suppress the behavior, but we're not getting to the root of the issue. She said that's not my fault.
Okay. All right. So just thinking about those two sound bites. And we'll come back to it.
Ready?
Yep.
All right.
All right, so throughout this presentation, we're going to be using the acronym DEI a lot, which means diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is what lens we're going to be using through this presentation to look at the work that we're doing. So we just wanted to go over, what does that mean? So the DEI framework is a conceptual framework that promotes the fair treatment and full participation of all people, especially populations that have historically been underrepresented or subject to discrimination for their background, identity, disability, etc. And so breaking that down even more, diversity refers to a representation of various social groups within a work group, organization, or community. And so for us, it would be within the childcare system or schools that we're working within. Equity involves providing resources according to the needs to help a diverse population achieve their highest state of health and functioning. And then inclusion strives for the environment that offers affirmation, celebration, and appreciation of all different approaches, styles, perceptions, and experiences. So that's really, going forward, the framework that we're going to use within this presentation.
Sorry, my computer's going crazy. All right, so the other thing that we want to work on is recognizing bias. So we're going to look at, really quickly, 8 strategies to addressing your own personal bias. So 1, check in with yourself and see what you're feeling in the moment. 2, is that feeling organic to the situation, or is it a reflection of a past or learned experience? 3, if it is not organic, then recognize that you are being biased. 4, ground yourself in the moment and align your lived and felt experience. 5, realize that others around you are individuals and do not necessarily represent what you may have learned about them in the past. 6, seek supervision from qualified professionals. 7, be in the moment. 8, breathe and move forward. So now we're going to look at the addressing framework, which is by Dr. Pamela Hayes, from her book, Addressing Cultural Complexities in Counseling and Clinical Practice, an Intersectional Approach, in 2022, and it is in its 4th edition. So Hayes will utilize the word addressing to assist in assessing an individual's various areas of diversity, intersectionality, power, and privilege. This helps us to understand areas of power and privilege and assist in understanding others' worldviews when we utilize this as an assessment. So the ways in which they act and react in various situations can be kind of gleaned through this assessment. It is to be noted that trauma can also play a large part in human behavior. So when we look at addressing, we're looking at age, disability, both born and acquired, religion, ethnicity and race, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, indigenous status, nationality, and then gender that is both born and endorsed. So with age, the older you are, the more privilege. Disability, if you don't have a disability, you have more privilege. If you acquire a disability later, you begin to lose some privilege. With religion in the United States, of course, it's Christianity. And then ethnicity and race, it's going to be people who identify as white Caucasian. For socioeconomic status, it's wealthy. And so I'm telling you all of the people who hold privilege. Sexual orientation would be people who identify as heterosexual. For indigenous status, it's people who are descendants of immigrants. So if you are a Native American or a native of the United States, you actually hold less power than those who are descendants of immigrants. Nationality, if you are born and raised in the United States, then you have more power and privilege than someone who may have immigrated to the United States. And then for gender, if you identify as your born gender, and we're looking at the biological duality, the male-female, even though there are more than one gender, we're discussing the biological male-female. So if you identify as, like I identify as a born and endorsed female, then I hold more privilege in that regard. However, when we look at the dyad, males are going to hold more privilege than female. So as we look at these, and feel free to write these down because we'll be referencing this. As we look at these, we are going to begin to look at where are those areas of power and privilege coming into our work. Where are they affecting us? Where are they affecting the people with whom we work? And then how do we work within those dynamics? We'll be able to access a copy of the slides. I'm not sure about that. I don't I don't know, but we'll have our contact information. So if you have any questions, you can always shoot us an email. Oh, okay, yes. So you'll have a copy of them. And they're posted on the session description. I'm following the chat too.
Fantastic.
Right, exactly. All right.
All right, so we want to talk about the role of power, privilege, and oppression in the work that we're doing. So Amber just went over the addressing framework. And so we want to do a self check-in. And this is where you guys can raise your hand, put something in the chat, or come off mute. We would really love to have some interaction in talking about this. So you guys do have access to the slides and you can do the power and privilege assessment. It takes a little bit of time, but it can be really helpful if that's something that you feel like you would like more education on, or that you're not sure that maybe the privileges or power that you hold when you walk into spaces, it can be really helpful to do that. So what we'd like to do and start to talk about is utilizing the addressing framework that we just went over. What do you think are areas that you hold of power and privilege? What are areas of power and privilege that you possess or that you just don't possess too? So thinking about that. Like Amber went over her whole addressing framework, that's kind of what we're wanting you guys to do, like looking at that acronym and then what power or privilege that you hold. And then how does power and privilege affect your ability to navigate this world? What areas do you notice of power and privilege affects the families that you're working with? And what areas of power and privilege, may be present within your own family system?
Again, feel free to put that in the chat or come off mute and share. And we're very Afrocentric in that we like call and response, so we need response.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, my name is Joan. Thank you for this session. Do you want me to do all the questions or pick one?
Maybe just pick one.
All right, I'll do the first one. I think it wasn't always true, but now I do have wealth, not rich, like a mansion, but so economically, we're sound. And then education, I think elevates my power and privilege based on or above. I don't want to sound elitist, but I realize the people we serve, the community we serve, has far less. So I've had to learn not to judge what they have based on what I have. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And that's very true, right? I know education isn't necessarily in here, but it does kind of go with socioeconomic status and it can make a difference. I have a lot of alphabet soup, as you saw. I have 2 master's degrees. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm a registered drama therapist. Like all of those things are areas of power and privilege. I see Karen here.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I've been aware of a lot of these for a long time, but I love having a different framework to look at them. And this addressing puts so many things together. So I like that. But I come from a lot of the areas of privilege. Female is less privileged than my general other areas. Religion is not known by looking at me, so that's not quite doesn't have as much effect. But I have not too distant in the past relatives who were immigrants with little language and some with less education. And my husband also is an immigrant of Hispanic background. And so I feel like, and I'm sure it's not perfect, but I feel like I'm aware and I try to remind other people that I'm working with.
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's difficult for them to take this phone call, regardless of how important it is, because they don't have the opportunity to step away at work and take a phone call
Yeah.
like you do. They can't take 2 hours off of work every time you need to have a child family meeting during the workday, just because you would be able to.
Right.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. I'm very excited.
Great. Lynn, we saw that you raised your hand next.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All good.
I recognize my power and privilege as a white cisgendered woman, not so much the woman, but as I've grown older, what I've noticed is that as an older woman, especially if I'm working with young teens or young parents, and they are in multi-generational homes, it can be helpful because I will often identify, and those parents will identify me regardless of race. They'll identify with my age. I'm an auntie, or I'm a grandma, and so then I have to be careful to think about who's my client and how do I work that power and privilege of being a grandma. Although sometimes it can also be in favor with young moms too. So it's just such a nuanced way to think about power and privilege. And thank you.
And everybody that's sharing in the chat, thank you, Lynn. That's a very helpful point. And everyone that's sharing in the chat, your experiences and your addressing, I'm reading them. They're all very wonderful. So I would definitely take a second to read them as well. Lisa, we saw that you raised your hand.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and I work for Head Start in the Holyoke, Cherry, Springfield areas of Western Massachusetts. And I went right to how do areas of power and privilege, number 4, affect the ways in which we work with families. And being a white woman, I feel like there's a lot of times I know from experience that I worked for early intervention as well, and going into homes of different cultured families, that they assume that because I'm a white woman that I haven't had any of the same experiences as they did, it's really tricky because, I am privileged. I am white and I'm privileged, and navigating that was really tricky. But I ended up building a lot of relationships by being able to do that, by being able to relate to people that were brown skinned or different cultures in the areas, like we kind of learned from each other is what I'm trying to say. So that was an interesting question.
Yeah. It's all about dynamics, right? Like we learn a lot from each other, and especially if we're open to really hearing what others have to say and their lived experience, not only do we become richer for it, we create a stronger community. All right, so let's, Linda, I see you. And this will be the last one, and we'll go ahead and move forward. You're muted.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm looking at number 4, the areas of power and privilege, how it affects the ways in which I work with families, because I am African American. Oftentimes they are more willing to listen and work with me. And because I am of age, I'm older than most of the parents that I'm working with, they basically look to me because they don't have that support system. Like we had back in my day, you had grandma and you had babysit in the neighborhood. That they look to me to be that, to give them, and they're more open and willing. I can't tell you enough how many young parents, fathers especially, that didn't have a dad in their life, how they receive what I say to them. They know that I'm coming from an honest place, And I also bring up a lot about culture. I understand what we've gone through in our past. I understand when you come from a single parent household. So it gives me the power of having the age, the race, and sometimes the religion. Sometimes that helps me as well. In the African American culture. In the white culture, what helps me is the fact that I'm educated.
Sure.
I have the master's degree in marriage and family counseling. And so they respect that. And when they see that, oh, we'll listen to you. So I just wanted to chime in.
Just so many brilliant insights. And like Dominique was saying in the chat, just, you know, really a lot of people are recognizing where they're standing sort of on this spectrum of things. So, all right, let's keep moving forward. So now we're going to talk about language justice. And I actually emailed Pamela Hayes and let her know she forgot about language because I feel like everyone is accessible to me. And what she said was that she felt that language was more in ethnicity and culture. But if I'm not mistaken, I think she's starting to look at it a little differently now. So let's talk about language justice. Language justice is a practice used in the social justice movement in order to create shared power, practice inclusion, and dismantle traditional systems of oppression that have traditionally disenfranchised non-English speakers. And we want to expand non-English speakers to people who speak colloquial languages like African American vernacular, as well as American Sign Language, things of that nature. So language is a lot broader even than just spoken language. When discussing the areas of power and privilege, we do often think of language as an area, often think of language as an area where there is power and privilege. But really language justice is sort of the last bastion in the battle towards equity. It's sort of one of the last few things that has started to become more recognized. However, for people who speak a language that is not English in the United States, this can be the difference between life and death, literally. So a new movement has emerged to give proverbial and literal voice to those who are non-English speakers in the United States and emphasize the importance of linguistic inclusion. So non-English speakers in the United States often have difficulty advocating for themselves and their children, as well as their families. It's important and in important places such as medical offices, police stations, schools, and hospitals. The time it can take to get an interpreter can be costly to lives that may be hanging in the balance. And for those of us who have worked with interpreters, I know Dominique and I have, it's brilliant when it really, really works, and it can be really, really difficult when it doesn't. I've had clients tell me I have no idea what they've said. Even though they speak the same language, they're doing a regional dialect that I don't understand. So understanding that when we're talking about language, just saying, oh, okay, if you speak Swahili, then you're fine. Well, there are dialects within that language, just like there are dialects within, English. Like sometimes people, like I'm from Colorado, so we consider to have like a nondescript sort of voice. You can kind of understand us regionally, but for some people in the South, they sound different. If you're from Texas, sometimes you sound different. If you're from the Northeast, sometimes you sound different. And so even within that, there can be issues that can come up. Dominique, is there anything you wanted to add to that I may have missed? I just want to make
No.
sure.
Also, just the privilege of being able to have access to an interpreter. That's been very interesting because Amber and I have worked with communities that sometimes it's really hard to get an interpreter just because of the language that they speak. Remembering the privilege that holds, that you're able to access that, and what it is like for people that do not speak the English language but are living within the American society where it's kind of an expectation, and how we need to be able to advocate for our clients that do not speak English to be able to get the same services and their needs met as we do for our clients that do speak English.
Right. And Joan makes a great point.
Yeah,
US
great point.
English versus UK English versus Australian English, right? Like we're all speaking English, but and just like with Spanish, there are different dialects. Cuban Spanish is different from Mexican Spanish, Puerto Rican, etc. So we just need to be aware of those areas of power and privilege when it comes to language and language justice. And somebody also brought up the point of being plus size. That is another area that is also being explored when it comes to equity. I am also a plus size woman, and I understand that a lot of times we are not seen as able-bodied people and are often looked down on and judged because of our size without knowing why we may be in that position. All right. So as we're continuing language justice, people who have an accent or speak multiple languages in the United States often face discrimination due to difficulty finding the correct words or word structures and the way that the words sound when they speak. In other countries, however, speaking multiple languages is seen as a positive, and people who are multi-language speakers are viewed as more intelligent and able to navigate the world. I had a professor in college who spoke 7 languages. English was like his 3rd or 4th, and he was completely fluent, and it was considered very bright in his country, and at times would struggle in the United States due to having an accent. So people who experience language discrimination in the United States are assumed to be less intelligent, of lower socioeconomic status, and are often considered quote unquote illegal immigrants. To be clear, a person is not illegal. So that is such a horrible way to describe people who are immigrating, especially a lot of our asylum seekers who are coming here because their lives are in danger. So we're going to do another quick self-check-in. Joan, I do see you, but let's do this quick self-check-in, and then I'll have you comment. Think about a time when you did not have a skill or did not fit into a culture or a mold where you were, and how you felt in that moment. Write down 3 feelings that you had and 3 needs you had, and then write down how you would address this with families and children. And Joan, go ahead and come off mute.
This was in response to language. We make videos and we wanted a Spanish interpreter. However, it was harder than we thought because of all the different countries where Spanish is spoken. All the words don't have the same meaning. So when we think it's so simple just to find a Spanish interpreter, it's not cut and dry like that. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for giving me that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Olivia. Feel free to come off mute, Olivia. Or maybe that was an accident. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
My microphone. Yes, I'm my first language is Spanish, and I do recognize that we do have different meanings for different words. But what you say, I've been in situations where I'm sitting at a table with people that I don't understand what they say or the meanings of what they say, and it's a very awkward situation.
I bet.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's like you're trying to communicate, and it's like, I'm sorry, wait, what? Just that? What did you say? I don't know what's going on.
I'm sorry. Or even just the level of the conversation sometimes is way beyond your expectations, or it's just, it feels uncomfortable. It feels that you want to just run away from the situation.
Sure, absolutely. I when I was younger, I went to Mexico to do an immersive program, and I had no idea what my teacher was saying. I knew we had homework because that's the only word I could translate. And then I had like no idea after that. And I'm just sitting there like, I now understand what English language learners are going through because I am lost, and so it creates an empathy when you've been in the situation for sure.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of stuff in the chat about like the feelings of like unclear, lost, fearful, disconnected, anxious. Like all of
Imposter
these feelings
syndrome.
that you're talking about, isolation, like these are what a lot of people that you may work with that do not speak English as their first language are experiencing just within navigating life. I know someone earlier spoke about how a lot of forms or documents are not in any other language than English, and how that is making it so they can't access services or be able to understand what they're signing up for. And so that's part of the advocacy that we need to do for our clients, is being able to say, well, we only have these forms in English, like we need to start translating them into different languages so that there's access for all communities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Angela. Okay, so we're going to move forward. All right, so now we're going to start looking at the traditionally and historically disenfranchised groups. Barrett places them in 3 different categories: the underrepresented, the invisible, and the service resistant. Each group represents a part of the population with varying needs, and Barrett will state that there is a heterogeneity in disenfranchised groups. For them to be called hard to reach families is actually a misnomer, because there's a lot of things that we need to be looking at, a lot of different factors.
And this is a great area, like if you're noticing that you are working with these communities and they are service resistant, or you're not getting phone calls back or emails back, of getting curious of like, what is going on for that person? Do they even have time to look at their email? Do they actually have access to their email and at home, or do they only go to the library? Are they already having a lot of systems involved within their family, and having one more is too overwhelming or too out of control for them? It really is important that we get curious and then also show up in a way that's authentic for that family that may be experiencing these things.
Right. And so some that, some are up here that you've seen that we've already discussed. A few that we haven't are families who are facing homelessness, families who are traveling or migrant type families, people who have imprisoned family members, parents of children with disabilities, parents with learning difficulties, as well as children with learning difficulties are often underrepresented. Our individuals are young carers, as mentioned before, and fathers. Parents with mental health problems can be often overlooked. Domestic violence or abuse perpetrators are overlooked as parents because some are still parenting. Our LGBTQIA plus community parents and families, socially isolated parents, families, and carers. And my apologies that all of this says parents. This is what's in Barrett's information, but understand that we want to include all carers of children. Family with needs below thresholds, and then refused asylum seeking families. So we have those who are accepted as asylum seekers, and then those who are not. They can often be invisible, as well as the white working class, which was mentioned before. And then when we look at the people who are considered service resistant, they can be long-term multi-problem families who have constantly had interactions with systems, foster care, police, schools, things of that nature, Department of Human Services, all of those kinds of things. Those are our multi-problem families. Criminally active families, so families that may have generations of criminal activity, gang involvement, mafia involvement, things of that nature. Domestic violence abuse perpetrators, again. Antisocial families, families who just do not interact with others, as well as substance abuse parents, and those who are in the fringe. And so here's something in the chat about a family that is interested but are unable, right? Like, because they're working. So just recognizing that families have all kinds of things that are coming up, and that carers, it's not that they don't care or that they don't want to participate, but it may be difficult because of the constraints of time and things of that nature. All right. I just want to read what Corinne, if I pronounce that appropriately, says. I need to be willing to change thinking about engagement and willingness, because I don't know always what their story is or their whys are. And that's brilliant. That's exactly what we want you guys to start thinking about, is like, oh gosh, it may not be an unwillingness. It may be that it's an inability to. Okay, so as we go, because we want to leave time for questions, here's just some pictures of various types of families that we see. We've got the imprisoned, we've got LGBTQIA, single parenting, we've got a single father in the corner, things of that nature. Seek to understand, Deborah. Yes, absolutely. Such
Absolutely.
a brilliant, brilliant way to put that. Seek to understand. All right. So continuing on, many families are going to fall into one or more of the three categories. Barrett says confidentiality, honesty, respect for difference, parent empowerment, and collaborative approach is going to be important. Like we said, it's not going to be one size fits all. So again, looking deeper, thinking deeper, assessing the needs. What does the family need to be successful? Being collaborative when beginning to identify resources. Is it that they live in a food desert and we need to come up with a way to get more food to our community? Maybe we have a food drive, or maybe we do. In Colorado, our public schools will do backpacks and they send fresh fruits and vegetables home over the weekend. And then identifying and gathering resources, creative and consistent advertising of services, and seeking feedback and adjusting to the feedback. We do have a check-in, but basically what we want you to do is look at what are areas of strengths of these families and how can you utilize those strengths to improve that engagement. Because we do want to give you guys a little bit of time. And intersectionality.
So intersectionality is Kimberly Crenshaw's work. And it basically, we talk about the multi-level different lived experiences that any person has, including yourself as the person that's interacting with these systems and families for our work on a day-to-day basis. And so we want you guys to remember, like, when you are working with children, like what intersectionality you have as the person walking in, and also what the school might have, the children, the family, the director, all of those kinds of things will play a part in the work that we're doing, because intersectionality plays a part in everything that we're doing. And so this is a good, just for time, we're going to keep moving forward, but this is a great self-check-in to do as well, of looking at what areas of your own intersectionality complement or collide with historically disenfranchised families. And if they collide, how can you use like your strengths to create more connection with them versus the isolation or separation?
Yeah. Lex brings up a great point. Families and carers who are deaf or have children who are deaf or have a stutter, understanding the importance of interpretation, or even having like the children who are the interpreter, that's a whole different level of working with families, and just being aware of what we may need to accommodate and to include those families. All right. So how do we bring these people together and bring them into our center? So we're going to combine Barrett and Crenshaw, and we're going to start by recognizing their unique perspectives and build utilizing their expertise. When people feel seen and heard and valued, they're more likely to buy in and they're going to participate more. Understanding the intersectional experiences, seeing them for who they are and how they may experience the world. Engage them in areas where they are comfortable and feel invited. Provide resources and opportunities that not only meet needs, but maybe enhance and exemplify the strengths of the families, and build community and network that way. When we value family, cultural experiences, and intersectionality, we're valuing children. Thus, we are able to not only work with, but center diverse families. When I first started teaching, I would call home. I had a parent, when she answered the phone, her first response was, "What did he do wrong?" I let her know that I was calling to say something positive, because I called to say something positive about all the children in my class. And the parent ended up making that child's favorite dinner. So the child said, "Well, keep telling my parents stuff so that I could keep having my favorite dinner." So sometimes just that one phone call can be a huge positive impact. And then the parents know, like, you don't hate their child, that you very much respect their child and their creativity and brilliance. And then they're more willing, when something does come up, to be able to listen and collaborate. So again, checking in, What are ways you can utilize your diverse families in your school community? What type of programming can you offer that would both meet the needs and strengths of the families that you serve? And then here's an example of a diverse classroom, having different flags up, different languages, different ability levels of children. We here have a child who has Downs, who's finger painting, as well as an African-American child with natural hair, putting children in non-traditional roles, like this young man who is representing as a caregiver, or here, like we have a construction worker who is female. All of those things being in your classroom will be really important. Diverse books, things of that nature. If you have these things, could you add more? What more is there to do? All right. So
we want to talk about the videos. Well, so
we have
has
5
anything
minutes.
changed? Yeah, we've got 5 minutes. So if you have any questions or anything like that, please do start putting them in the chat for us and we'll start answering them. But we'd also love to hear, after finishing this presentation, has any of the impressions that you had about the first 2 videos changed? Did something come up for you while watching those videos that you were surprised about? Can we check in with ourselves if we're put in these situations on how to best support the families as well as support the staff? Like, what does that look like for you? And what have you taken away from what you've learned today to improve the work that you're doing with families and children? So hands raised or in the chat, we'd love to just hear from you guys about what was helpful, what wasn't, and what
did
you
we meet our goals?
Yes, did we meet our goals?
Anybody in our last few minutes? I've learned additional perspectives to consider when thinking about where our families are. Brilliant, Crystal. That's exactly what we're looking for. I like the message from both, but think the tone from the first dad could have been a little less intimidating, from Lisa. Was it intimidating, or were we looking at just how he expresses himself? So that's another thing we have to look at, again, coming back to sort of the cultural elements of language and expression. So it could be that it seemed intimidating. Good, absolutely. Rabina, thank you. We've given you a lens to view language, listen and understand to what they are trying to say. Exactly. Oftentimes, families of color are perceived as being aggressive when they're just being passionate, which is my takeaway. Brilliant. I think the first parent's tone was showing passion regarding his child. Both got the same message across. So it's literally the exact same wording. They both actually said the exact same thing. Nothing has changed. A new way of better understanding families and children. First dad shoes, felt passionate about my kids before, but I can see where it is intimidating. Okay. And it's also interesting that the first thing they said was that they went to mom. So again, not recognizing that dad is an active caregiver in this child's life. So we also have to be aware of that. Listen to families and being able to accept what they have to say. Absolutely. I really felt proud of the first clip of the dad advocating being married into a Hispanic family. I know from experience that passion can come across as anger and intimidation. Being a woman of color, I immediately felt and knew the first video would be perceived as aggressive. Yes. Brazelton Touchpoint says, value passion where you find it. It can be a helpful reframe. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So 2 more minutes. Any kind of last thoughts?
Well,
really, go ahead.
We can also finish because there's some resources that we have too that we definitely want you guys. So really, we'd also very much like to do a special thank you to Dr. Rosemary Allen, Jasmine Crane, Val Gill, and Torrin Schuster, because without their help and support, this presentation wouldn't be possible. So we really wanted to thank them.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And then here's our Amber. Here's our contact info. Jasmine Crane is the supervisor of our health and well-being department. We are here for consultation for anyone, regardless of where you are located within the United States. And we'd love to answer any questions or do any follow-up for anyone that has them after this presentation. I know we had to hurry up a little bit faster than we would have liked, so we are definitely here if you'd like to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your thank yous, and thank you for
so
allowing
much.
us to share time. Here are some resources. So know when you go in the back, here are some resources on the website. They're direct links, so you can click directly on them. And then, of course, here's our reference page. So any books or anything like that that we happen to use, you have access to those as well.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Have a wonderful day.
I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.